Here we go. Welcome, Average Joe Nation from around the globe. Props to you for staying up to date and keeping in the know. With fantasy football, man, very soon you'll reign. The knowledge that these three guys have, man, it is insane. Yeah, fantasy football suck, hateful eight, they wear the crown. Hold it down. Pickle, Blackburn, and Trimboli, hold it down. Pulling up to the recording studio, we're getting loud. Getting ready, headphones on, red light go, break it down.
Welcome back to the Hateful Eight Fantasy Football Podcast with your host. I'm Pickle, and with me as always, he's not in today. MIA. No, Blackburn last minute had to cancel on recording today, so
he'll be back next week.
He'll be back next week. So it was a last minute change in plans. So, but it's all right. We've got two of us. Do I still? Yeah, I do have it. It's just the two of us today, so that's all right. We'll be able to carry the flag.
We'll do our best.
Right. We'll try not to completely sink the ship.
No guarantees, though.
No. But as we say, as always, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can also find us on YouTube. You can find us on DATV for the local Dayton viewers at 10:30 p.m. on Fridays and then 4 p.m. on Sundays. And then as well on any of your podcast platforms you can find us. So the main segment for today is a follow-up from last week. So this is the swipe right segment. So it's the players that you want to have on your roster in every roster that you're drafting this year.
Absolutely.
So these are the guys that you got to have. These are guys that maybe not the top tier guy, but like in their position, but they're somebody who's going to win you a lot of games and probably playoff stretch-wise, like a Damian Williams last year that kind of snuck got you into the playoffs, essentially.
Yep, these are guys that also have a personal preference for you. And maybe it's just a guy you like in general. It fits the way you like to draft or fits the way you like to play fantasy football. So,
right.
But to give a analogy here, it's like you're going to give them the rose.
Right, you're going to give them the rose if you're doing the the Bachelor or Bachelorette show. If you've ever watched that in like the 20 seasons that it's been around.
So if you're married, you've probably seen it.
Yes. So then you can follow all of us on Twitter. You can follow me at jpickleth8ff. You can follow Trimboli at ftrimth8ff, and you can follow Blackburn at jblackburnth8ff. So let's go ahead and get into the first segment today, Fantasy News and Notes.
Fantasy News and Notes.
All right, Fantasy News and Notes presented by Sleeper. If you're wanting to stay up to date on anything fantasy football related, especially now that the season is upon us with Thursday night Hall of Fame game going on tonight.
Absolutely.
And as well as preseason games in general and training camps, you're going to want to stay up to date as you're approaching your fantasy drafts, which we are actually doing today. As we speak here in the next couple hours, our listener league will kick off on the Sleeper platform. So it's going to be a slow draft, obviously, but it's always fun to get going on the Sleeper platform.
Right. It's August. Football is officially back.
It is. From here until I think they said February, every week there will be a football game on.
Yep.
Bless them all.
That's the way it should be.
Bless them all. So we're just going to kind of hit on a couple of them because we do have some listener questions as well. The first one, AJ Green hurts his foot and will miss up to minimally, they're saying 4 weeks. It was here in the Dayton area at Welcome Stadium. Post the injury and everything, it seems like a lot of the football players were dogging the field, saying it was awful and it's so old looking, and some Bengals, not higher up, but some representatives of the Bengals were making complaints as well. But it goes back to, you guys approved it. They said, right. Here's the field. You approved it. It's no different than when you went to the Springboro football field or West Carrollton football field a couple years ago. You will have to approve it. Everybody, all the way up to the owner, has to approve. Yeah, we're good to go. So,
listen, AJ Green's looking for money right now, and if he can't be considered injury prone, I know he is, but I mean, if they can blame it on the field and it helps him out, go for it.
Right.
It's not the end of the world.
All right, so Ezekiel Elliott has headed to Cabo to train during the holdout. It sounds like Jerry Jones and the Cowboys are wanting to offer him, or wanting to reset the market for running back because they feel like Todd Gurley got overpaid, and Ezekiel Elliott is coming from the standpoint that he sees what Todd Gurley got paid, so he wants to be paid that minimum because, in his words, he feels he's as good or not better than Todd Gurley.
Right.
And he doesn't have the injury lingering as Todd Gurley does.
Well, he might have a point, too, but I hate to say this, the landscape of the NFL, the running back is replaceable. We've seen it. And unfortunately, These guys are going to have to decide whether they're going to sit out, lose money under the contracts they're currently under, or if they're going to do exactly what what I think they should do is show up and then renegotiate.
Right. I don't think this is going to be a Le'Veon Bell situation. I expect him to be suited up week 1, ready to go. But, I mean, I just don't think – I think Jerry Jones is being told from the rest of the Jones family as well as higher-ups within the Cowboys organization to make a stern point and to make it sound like we don't need him, we don't want – and not that we don't want him, we don't really technically need him, and that we can get by without him. That's why we brought in Alfred Morris and so on and so forth. But ultimately, I just think that we're looking at a potential issue if both sides don't come to an agreement. They got to meet in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they need him if they're going to try to make a Super Bowl run in this small window, they're going to need Zeke.
you're right.
At least now, with the way the team's, shaped up right now. But
Right. And then Melvin Gordon, Chargers still not close. I think this one's the one that's going to hold out into the season.
yeah.
Any of them do.
Yep, this is going to get ugly, so.
And then Michael Thomas officially signs a 5-year, $100 million contract, $61 million guaranteed. Dude got paid.
Elliott and Gordon just want to get paid, and Thomas got paid.
You know what? Here.
Dollar bills, y'all.
Pretty much. Dude got paid and got $61 million guaranteed. Reset the market for wide receivers, Julio Jones. And he pretty much, I mean, and he's the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL history. I mean, that's, wow.
They made a statement there.
No, they did. And, I mean, I think that they see the window with Drew Brees, and they got to get this guy in here because the window is shutting quickly. And let's be honest, Alvin Kamara is going to be the next big name that's going to want money post Ezekiel Elliott and Gordon. It's going to be him and Christian McCaffrey are the next in line to get paid.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty much all we have for the list or for the news and notes this week. But we do have a take it or leave it segment that we're going to try to incorporate from a week-to-week basis from here until the season starts. So let's get into that.
Ask me the questions.
Take it or leave it.
All right, take it or leave it. The listener questions. Put a little 8-bit Sega Genesis in there for you guys. So I'll just kind of read some of the questions and we'll see. We'll kind of answer them as we go. But the first one is from Optimum. It says, Tyreek Hill finished with some of the best stats for wide receiver last year. I hate having him on my team because he can go 10, 203, or 215 at any moment. How much do you think that his inconsistency hurts his value? I don't think it hurts any because the only thing that was hurting his value was the fact of whether he was going to be suspended for 4 games or a season.
Yep.
Once people heard that, hey, he's not suspended at all or it's a 4-game minimum, his ADP shot right back up to where it should be. Yeah. And it's now, I think, like a second-round ADP. So
here's the thing. He's had 7 games of 20-plus points in a PPR. I'm pretty sure I'll take that even with the inconsistency. So he's still a top 10 guy for me.
Right. I mean, at the end of the year, he's finishing top 5 wide receiver, regardless of his inconsistency. I know that we call him literally the epitome of a boom-bust guy, and you just hope the bust weeks are not on weeks that are crucial for you to jump your league mates to get higher up into the playoff seeding. So.
Well, and he only had 3 games last year of under 10 points. So really, his bust rate was not that bad last year.
No, he actually improved, honestly. Yeah. Last year was a good year for him in minimizing his inconsistencies.
And it's Mahomes, though.
And that was the difference.
Effect, so.
I think that we're going to see, as long as he's healthy and as long as Hill is on the field, off the field, political, non-political relations stuff, and just in general the off-the-field issues that come along with him, if you're just looking at it from a fantasy purposes, he's well worth the second-round pick that he's going. It is what it is, and you're going to have to pay that. I mean, I will be honest, I talked to Blackburn and I've talked to you about it. Some of the mock drafts that I've been in, I've seen the 2 to 3 snake. 2nd round, taking Hill, 3rd round, coming and taking Mahomes, and that's your stack. I mean, that's a lot of investment in that Chiefs offense if something happens, but I've seen it start to kind of go up. And I asked the people at Sleeper, how much are you seeing this? And they said it's drastically went up once you heard Hill was going to be there for week 1.
See, I mean, I like the stack, don't get me wrong, but the stack I'd rather have is Hopkins because you can get Watkins so much later.
Watson?
Oh, Watson. I mean, I'm sorry. Yes, you're
right.
You
said Hawkins. I was like, you want Watkins
I did.
Mahomes?
Man,
all right.
I apologize. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. That's the stack I'd rather have because we can get Watson later. So.
Right. I mean, I would even take a Matt Ryan and Julio Jones.
Absolutely.
These are the guys that I'm talking about that you could still go get and not feel like you're breaking the bank to like draft capital wise. So
absolutely.
All right, Nacho Taco says, "Give me everything you got on Gurley." And says his career with Rams, his this year's expectations, etc. So, I think for specifically redraft purposes, I think Gurley is going to be on a pitch count, and it's going to go as his knee goes. If his knee is good, he's going to see as much volume. I think that's what you're going to. It's pretty much what you're going to see last year in the real NFL playoffs, where he was good for that Saints game, and then it was like he disappeared. He played a lot for the Cowboys game, then he disappeared. And then he disappeared, and in the Super Bowl, it was like pretty much next to nothing.
You're slowly starting to hear the percentages already 65-35.
Right.
Which at that he's gonna regress from last year.
And the thing is, his ADP is showing the concerns. It's not just a few of us fantasy football analysts or general fantasy football players are concerned. I mean, I think the whole platform of fantasy football players in general are concerned. And if you're not concerned, I'd like to know what insider information you have that he's going to play 100% of the snaps.
Right.
So, now career-wise, I mean, I hate to say it's a wait and see. I mean, I hate to say it, but to me, it would not surprise me if he's done in 2 years based on an injury of some sort, because running backs do get injured.
Right.
And the breakdown of his knees, that arthritis, how bad is it? Is it a slow progression? And that's what Dr. Jesse Morris has said. He goes, we don't really know. Is it a slow progression? Is it a quick progression? How bad is this arthritis getting to him? And we'll know this year. By the end of this year, Nacho Taco, you will know what you're going to get with Gurley in 2020 and 2021.
Well, if you're in Dynasty, I think you have to unload him now while he still has probably the max value. Because if he goes south like we're projecting it could, he's going to have almost no value then.
Right. I mean, if I'm in Dynasty, I'm holding him until he steps on the field. He has a big game of some sort where he gets like 100 rushing yards, a touchdown or two, and he's scoring 20 fantasy points, and then I'm like, send and dump him to somebody and get a younger running back or a wide receiver if you're hurting for a wide receiver, something. Because, I mean, his value is just going to continue to trend down. I mean, it's just part of the fantasy. It's part of football.
Right. What do you think his overall finish would be if, let's say, he's more like closer to a 55-60 split, but he's healthy enough to make it through the year?
I think we're looking at probably top 15 running back.
Okay.
If he's in that 50-50 split with Darrell Henderson or Malcolm Brown or whoever, I think he's in that top 15 with a high of top 10. I think his ceiling is top 10, but I think his floor is top 15.
We're on the same page.
All right. Philosopher. I want to say Velociraptor, but I think he's trying to say Velociraptor, like philosophy.
Yeah.
What are some draft strategies that you use in a 2 tight end dynasty, and how would you draft the top 6 tight ends? And who are some 2 tight end 2 dart throws that you like in a tight end 2 or 2 tight end format? A lot of tight end talk right here for him. He apparently plays in a tight end 2 or 2 tight end dynasty. I have never played. I'll be honest, never played in one of those. However, I mean, I know how in outside of like the Scott Fish Bowl where you have to play 2 tight ends and there's a premium. I will tell you the tight ends went very early in those drafts.
Well, you have to because it's so few far between.
Right. So for top 6 tight ends, you're looking at Kelsey, you're looking at Kittle, you're looking at Ertz, you're looking at even Jared Cook, you're looking at Evan Ingram now. You're
Hunter Henry's going to play a role now.
I just drew a blank on the other guy. O.J. Howard. I mean, there's a lot of guys in that top 6 or 7 range that can potentially be anywhere from 1 to 6. But, I mean, for a tight end 2 that you're looking at that's maybe outside like the general spectrum, it might be a team like a Noah Fant from Denver. I mean, that people are really high on in Dynasty. But the thing is, I know that he's talking about in Dynasty, I mean, I don't see him finishing the top 12 this year. He has a ceiling of finishing top 12 because he may just see a ton of volume, but his floor could be anywhere from 13 to 20.
Right.
And the same thing with Hawkinson. I mean, that's another one.
Well, that's what I was going to throw out. He's probably a good pick. Well, and Mark Andrews for Baltimore. I mean, he's one I think you can go play. It's just in a 2 tight end form. That's hard. That's tough.
I will tell you 3 guys that are all veterans that everybody is sleeping on or is trying to forget about because they've given them the fantasy,
the old boot,
the fantasy poops, as we'll call it. So it would be Jimmy Graham.
Yep.
Tyler Eifert.
Yep.
And Jordan Reed. Those are 3 guys that I would go look at and see if they're on waivers or if you can get them off of somebody's roster for cheap. Because I think this year, if they all are healthy and play to their potential, they all could be a top 12 tight end.
And don't forget about Trey Burton.
Trey Burton's
burned
another
a lot
one.
of people last year, but I think he could come back around.
Right. So that's what we would take in that context. Now Cody Leith 1313 says, I have the second pick in a full PPR league. I'm pretty sure that the guy with the first pick is taking Saquon. Should I take a chance on Zeke or go McCaffrey? Okay, if you're drafting today, it's McCaffrey.
Right.
Because Zeke's not shown. Now, if Zeke is here playing, I think you really personally, and I'm trying to not sound like a homer because I am a Cowboys fan, but I just think that the offense overall in Dallas has more upside than I think the offense in Carolina does. Now, I think that they're going to see probably the same amount of volume and touches and snaps counts and everything else. I just think that McCaffrey's going to see more in the passing game. Zeke's going to see more on the ground game. And if Zeke even completely sees what he saw last year or even takes a jump in the passing game, then I think that makes him go ahead of McCaffrey. And that's the only reason why. And I love Christian McCaffrey.
Listen, if Zeke starts to show up to camp, he's my 101.
Right.
Overall.
And I know people are like, oh, I got to have Barkley. Zeke is my 101 if he shows before week 1.
Dude, Zeke's going to lead the league in rushing yards. He's on a great offense, like you said, and he's got meaningful snaps. Now,
right.
The volume that word gets thrown around. Sometimes volume, it's great.
Right.
Targets are great. But if they're not meaningful targets, meaning the chains aren't getting moved, you're not seeing red zone attempts, and you're not seeing touchdowns, really for fantasy purposes, it's irrelevant.
Right. And to me, when I'm looking at the Carolina Panthers offense, they have a lot of good wide receivers, but they really don't have any stud wide receivers. They don't, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Amari Cooper is a top 3 wide receiver. I'm just saying I would take Amari Cooper over Curtis Samuel or DJ Moore.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's not because I think that they're bad. It's just I think the targets and the way the offense is going to go. Dak is going to throw the ball more than Cam Newton is. And that's the other option. And I just think Dak and Zeke are going to connect a lot more, whether it's handoffs or screens. And we see, how many times have we seen Zeke take a screen for 90 yards down the sideline? It's that little, end around. He sneaks out with these big 300-pound guys in front, and it's down the sideline gone. That's just opportunity to me.
I can't argue with you because it's everything for him. It's everything in the passing game.
Right.
If that's an uptick, he's going to blow up.
Right. And it is an 8-team league, he says. So to me, still, if Zeke is there, has reported by the time you draft, you take Zeke. If he has not, you take Christian McCaffrey. Either way, I think you're going to come at the end of the year, you're going to be fine.
And you're splitting hairs, really.
Right.
It's all preference.
All right, and then Ken H. actually emailed, says, the question is, would you rather take Joe Mixon and Hunter Henry paired, Travis Kelce and Lamar Miller paired, or George Kittle and Marlon Mack paired? I'm taking Joe Mixon and Hunter Henry.
See,
but it's a slightly above Marlon Mack and George Kittle.
I'm taking George Kittle and Mack because it's the safest play. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm not going to lie to you. I'm nervous about Mixon because with all the injuries to the offensive line, A.J. Green going down now, Mixon for me has a huge chance of being a bust this year now.
Yes.
Listen, I'm still going to draft him where he's currently at, tail end of the first, into the second. But if a guy that I think could bust would be Mixon. So for me, I like the safer play with Kittle and Mack. If I had to pick in this group.
I would say in the Tier 2 running backs that Mixon is in with Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb, even Melvin Gordon now because of not reporting. I mean, Bell, Connor, all those guys, I'm taking any one of them over Mixon. And then unless Gordon doesn't show. Gordon's the only one that I would have an asterisk. But, yeah, to me, losing your left tackle and kind of putting a Band-Aid on that spot, losing A.J. Green, yes, he wasn't going to be a top 5 wide receiver, but he was going to have a presence out there to stretch the field, to create defensive matchups, to help the run game. And I just think the tower the tower of cards is slowly falling down card by card in the Bengals offense.
And the word busty is I don't mean because I don't think he's going to be a good running back. I think he's still going to have a great season. It's just where you're drafting him at. Is he going to return that value? And that, to me, is starting to scare me. His risk reward it's really high and really low. So it's a huge range of outcomes here.
Correct. So that's all we had for the questions. We're going to kind of do that every week for you guys and answer questions because it seems like questions are being asked more prominently now because drafts are approaching and the season's approaching. So let's go ahead and get into the final segment today, the RPO swipe right.
I want it all. I want it all. I want it all. And I want it now.
All right. RPO Swipe Right, presented by Trophy Smack. Trophy Smack has over 1,000 different, that's right, 1,000 different customizations for trophies. 1,000% trophy combinations. They also have fantasy championship rings, which you can see on the front of the table, and also draft boards is a big one. The draft fantasy belt, the fantasy belts that they got as well. And I mean, I know Blackburn just messaged us and said that last night and said, hey, got the draft board. So we've got our draft board through them as well, and we're looking forward to having that on display, and we're going to take pictures for our draft and everything. So
listen, for our personal league, we do everything through Trophy Smack.
yes. I mean, they literally, like I said, outside of having a fantasy football platform kind of like Sleeper, they pretty much have touched on every point of the fantasy football spectrum.
Listen, if they just would tell me who to draft, they'd do everything for me.
Right. Just set it and forget it. So, but yeah, they got the draft boards now, $39. Everything is free shipping if you purchase any of these items. Like we said, the belt, the trophy, ring, or the draft boards. And if you purchase a trophy, if you use the promo code TH8FFRING, then you can get a free championship ring with your trophy. So perfect for me. All right, so this is the players that we are talking about to draft that you have got to have on your roster every day and sometimes 2 times Tuesday. So,
absolutely.
So Blackburn not being here, he did give us his guys. So if we want, we'll just dabble into those guys first before we get into ours. His first one is Tyler Boyd, and I mean, given the recent news of A.J. Green, I don't think A.J. Green's going to miss more than maybe a handful of games, maybe 3-4 games max, but I think that helps Tyler Boyd. Hurts his ADP because I think his ADP is going to shoot straight up because everybody's like, hey, this is it. This is the only viable receiving option now. But, I mean, the guy comes in with just getting paid, so I think he feels like he's the wide receiver franchise for this team. So maybe he's got a little bit more respect in his mind that he feels like he's the guy, comes in. He didn't play the greatest initially with A.J. Green going out last year, but he also wasn't playing with the starting quarterback for part of those.
True.
So it's still it's a better offensive line. We're assuming Eifert's going to be healthy, and John Ross is dealing with some sort of hamstring issues. I just think Auden Tate's one that's going to potentially, I've heard a lot of, like, he's kind of like what they're expecting to take the A.J. Green spot, being on the outside.
Well, you're going to need both Ross and Tate to step up for Boyd really to flourish.
Right.
Here. I think he runs better with being technically the second guy.
Right.
I hate saying it that way, but it's true.
Right.
I like him. If A.J. Green was here, I'd love him at this ADP.
Right.
It's almost a steal.
I mean, 703, wide receiver 27. I think that's his floor, honestly. I think he has a top 15 wide receiver potential. That's his ceiling to me.
It's crazy. The games with A.J. on the field is when he had 100-plus touchdowns or 100-plus yards and then touchdowns in those games. So
we'll see. I like him, and then I just think that it's a good thing. I mean, that A.J. Green, as long as he comes back, I think that helps. The only problem is you're going to have to pay up for Tyler Boyd at this point.
Yeah.
So
his ADP will rise.
Yeah. All right, and then a fan favorite of yours, you finally got him on board.
So excited.
You did. You informed Blackburn he needed to pack his carry-on luggage. And,
absolutely.
Carry-on Johnson. So he's got a 402 ADP, running back 18. Now in the loadout, we do have him as the running back 22. So, but that's going to steadily probably climb as we get closer and closer to the season. And then I believe, because we just updated it this morning, it's probably higher because it was not updated pre. I just drew a blank on the running back, Riddick being traded or cut. So he's probably in that top. He's probably right around where his ADP is, running back 18 now. So to me, perfect spot. Riddick's gone. He's really only competing with C.J. Anderson, who's not going to do the pass catching, and Zenner, who's going to kind of be a third guy. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Zenner's kind of like. He's the clipboard guy. Yeah. So, the offense has transitioned to supposedly a first offense, and they have they've gotten the better offense. The offense line has gotten better. They are wanting to implement the running back into more of a pass catching role, anyways. So, I think C.J. Anderson's strict role is going to be goal line and short yardage that they need, like 3rd and inches, or they're on the goal line and they need to pound it in. Where Carry-On Johnson's going to be probably every other play. So.
Well, yeah, and that 3rd down role now has been vacated with Riddick gone.
Right.
Johnson can fill that plus the early round snaps. That's why I really like him this year. And you got to remember, Stafford was hurt last year.
Right.
So with him coming back healthy, this offense is going to look a lot better. overall.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of put this offense, Kerryon Johnson's and C.J. Anderson, into the to the Christian McCaffrey and the Jonathan Stewart setup, where I think that Jonathan Stewart was more of that short yardage and that bruiser back. Christian McCaffrey came in just being the pass catching guy, and then they slowly fed him the ball in the run game in general. And I think that's what you're going to see. Kerryon's going to start out being the pass catching guy all the time, and they're going to slowly give him more and more run game volume until he's pretty much seen every down.
And they want to be a run-first offense. You're going to need both running backs are going to get a heavy workload here.
Right. So, I mean, those are the two guys, Tyler Boyd and Kerryon Johnson. I like both of them.
I do too. I'm not avoiding either one. So
Kerryon Johnson is the one that I really like out of the two because I think that his ADP is where it's at. It's not going to climb very much more. Boyd, I think you're going to have to pay probably in that 5th or 6th round eventually by draft time.
As you see as we go on with this segment, we all picked a running back. For the sole purpose is it's hard to find these guys late. So you got to jump on these guys while you can, and you got to start picking the ones in the 4th, 5th round that are going to pay off for you.
Right. All right, so for me, I'll just do my two guys. David Montgomery's the first one. Big time.
Again, welcome.
Well, I know a couple weeks ago people were probably going to comment and say, hey, didn't you say he was too high ADP? He was, but I've seen enough, I've read enough, I've heard enough out of the camp, and I watched some film, which I texted you the video. I'm like, I mean, the guy he is everything that Jordan Howard was not. And that's not a knock on Jordan Howard. It was just what they had in mind for Jordan Howard, and it just didn't ever pan out. He is that guy, and he's a young guy. I mean, he's a draft pick that they just drafted for this exact reason.
They paid up for him.
Right. So he's got a 410 ADP. We've got him as a running back 26. Now, this was also before we updated this morning. He's going to be he's going to be pushing that 20 line. I think he has a ceiling of top 16, top 15-ish. He could be in that top 12, but I'm banking on, in worst case scenario, his floor is top 20.
Right.
Because Jordan Howard, who played his worst season last year, was 20. So they've got him as basically pinpoint as the stable every down back. Tariq Cohen, they're going to try to put more into the pass game and more out wide and kind of gadget him in and out. So I just think that being praised by the coaching staff all offseason, never hearing a negative thing. And, I mean, it's one thing saying, like, he's doing okay. But, I mean, Nagy has said he is awesome in the pass protection. He's finding the hole when he needs to. He's not hesitating. He's not stutter-stepping. And he is running guys over. I mean, everything that you want to hear out of a running back in the rookie year coming in. So, top 20 potential for sure. And just for me, I want to put in that, and disclaimer, this guy is going to win you a fantasy football championship. I'm just telling you right now, I would be at the end of the year, I will look to see how many fantasy football championship teams there are have David Montgomery on their roster. I just think he is that good.
Now, he could watch him in camp, see all the news, because he could start off slow. They might work him into the offense, but I think by year's end, I totally agree. He's going to be a stud this year. He's going to be on a lot of championship teams.
Yes. You know what? Why don't you tell me who your running back is? Because I think when I saw it, I was like, I don't mind it. I just have a concern for his BFF.
Okay, and actually, his BFF to me doesn't bother me, but it's Chris Carson for me. Right now, ADP of 507. He's a running back 24, and our loadout, he's actually the 24 now. Again, that could have changed.
Right.
So your concerns are that he's going to share the backfield with Rashard Penny. Probably he's got a little bit of an injury concern here.
I was going to say my more so was the injury concern paired with if they try to implement that draft capital of Rashad Penny.
Right.
Because he is healthy.
So when I went and looked back at all the stats here, this is a run-first offense, right?
Oh, yeah.
534 attempts last year, second in the league.
Yeah.
Well, Mike Davis leaves. There's 112 that are vacated.
Right.
So Penny can still absorb all of them, let's say, and Carson is still north of 200. He had 200. I mean, that's 247 last year.
Right.
So for me, there's just enough offense to go around in general for both of those players to be relevant. And I think when you're going to get a starting guy this late, in the 5th round, like we just said, you got to find the guys 4th, 5th round. That's why I love Chris Carson here. That and the offense was 6 in points, so he's going to have touchdowns. He was heavily utilized in the red zone. He saw 50% of the rushing attempts there.
Man, I like Chris Carson, and the guy played through. Him and Breida played through some serious banged up injuries, and they just kept coming back. They'd sit out maybe a series max, and they'd sit for like a couple plays, and then they'd be back in, and they'd run the ball and then they go back out. I mean, so to me, the injury isn't a concern of like that he would, if he gets injured, he's not going to play through the pain. He's proven that he's going to play through the pain. My concern is, and I just don't know what we're going to do with crazy Uncle Pete and chewing his gum, what he has got in his head, because he has got a monster in DK Metcalf, he has made it very clear that they are going to use often. They paid up and they paid for Russell Wilson, who you don't pay that kind of money to have him run and hand the ball off. I mean, it's the same thing that we talked about with Kirk Cousins last year. But I think that by the season's end, I think that the overall stats, like snap counts, percentage and all that, and touch versus like each other, I think it's going to be closer to 50-50 by the season end. That's how my personal feeling. I mean, I know that you clearly are more so in the Chris Carson camp, and I'm not on either one of their sides. This is probably a backfield that I will avoid, in my personal opinion.
No, and I agree with you that I get why they paid Wilson, but if you've noticed over the years, they have transitioned away from letting him throw a ton. And be honest with you, I like Metcalf, trust me.
Right.
I like him in certain situations. I like Lockett. I don't think it's the strongest wide receiving core, though.
Oh, no.
So for me, I think you're going to heavily use the running back in both of them. And listen, but the knock on Chris Carson, though, in PPRs, he doesn't see enough in the passing game.
Right.
They've tried to implement more of that. I mean, already in camp right now, he's taking screens, and he's looking awesome. He's looking really good. So the more that trends up, I just think his value is going to be there. I mean, he could easily see north of 1,000 yards just out of pure volume.
Right. And I mean, the thing is, it would not be, like I said, when I say end of the year, it would not surprise me if Chris Carson and Rashad Penny are maybe 25, 30 points apart from each other.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of like the not Tyreek Hill, but the Tariq Cohen, Jordan Howard. Like, it would not, like this year, it would not surprise me if Tariq Cohen and David Montgomery are not maybe 20, 30 points apart from each other. Like, seriously. Yep. So, when I look at it, and for me, ADP of 507?
507, yep.
And do you have any, do you know what Rashad Penny's is? Because I think he's like a 7th or 8th round pick right now. So, to me, if I'm looking at somebody who's going to be close points-wise, I'm going to take the back that I know that has a chance to potentially hit the same numbers that the back that's going 3 rounds earlier.
I guess Carson's ceiling for me is higher than Penny's.
Okay.
So that's why I'm willing to pay up for him, because I think he's got RB1 upside, but with the split that I see coming too, I think he's going to safe RB2 range.
Okay, so and my question is, which running back duo, if you had to pick the duo, are you taking Tariq Cohen and David Montgomery at their ADPs, or are you going to take Chris Carson and Rashad Penny at their ADPs?
I'm taking Montgomery and Cohen. I don't really have a lot of faith in Penny.
Okay, because Cohen is going, I think, 6th round, 7th round, and Montgomery's going into the 4th.
See, here's the difference. Penny doesn't have that role like Cohen has. See, Cohen has that pass-catching role, and he does it well.
Chris Carson does everything. Right.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. He can take the workload, which we'll see if Penny can. That's his big knock right now. And David Montgomery, he's a wild card, but I think he can do both. So I'd rather have that backfield.
Right. All right. Now for me, I picked the next guy I picked is a wide receiver, and I am full on checked into this camp.
You've been checked in for a while.
Right. Chris Godwin. I know that there's been a lot of hype talking about him and all that. So I went and looked, and I did statistical stats, as I sometimes do when looking at players to try to tell me, nah, he's not that good. I just, for a sidebar, for a second, when I use stats to kind of tame the hype or tame my personal feel for a guy to see if I can sway myself by looking at stats. I don't use stats in a negative way. I just use it as it's either justifying what I think or dismissing what I think to help me kind of clear out personal, hey, I think this guy's really great, but then when you look at the stats, you're like, oh, maybe not so much. So, but Chris Godwin, 509 ADP, we've got him as the wide receiver 20 in the draft loadout. Now that was obviously 4, so it's probably higher now. Now, and as Bruce Arians calls it, he is going to become the Larry Fitzgerald role in this offense. That enough sold me. So I looked. Arians then has also been quoted saying he's going to be a close to 100-catch guy, and he will never come off the field.
Hey.
Bless you, Arians. Bless you.
If that happens, he's a steal.
Right. So looking at that, in 2018, in a lesser offense and a lesser quality offensive play calling, he finished the season as a number 25 receiver, even though he only played 70% of the snaps in just 6 games. So he did not see above 70% snap for the season. He only saw 70% of the snaps, 6 games. 5 of which was when Deshaun Jackson was sidelined from week 13 to 17. That's when he really started blowing up, was the end of the year. And then he has been told he's going to line up in the slot primarily. So looking at stats for Fitzgerald under Bruce Arians, wide receiver 17 in 2013, wide receiver 52 in 2014, but that was when the offense was really bad and they had a lot of injuries on the offensive line in general. 2015, wide receiver 9. 2016, wide receiver 12. 2017, wide receiver 6. I mean, the proof's there. I mean, if he's going to literally feed him the ball like he did Larry Fitzgerald, how can he not be a top 15 wide receiver?
My only takeaway I think I'd want Carson Palmer during that time than I'd really want Winston, but
right.
But that's neither here nor there. Chris Godwin's going to it's going to be Jameis.
Right.
If Jameis plays well, Godwin's going to be great.
Right. So I'm buying in on it, and I'm going to take him at that 509 into the 5th, beginning of the 6th round ADP every day. I will gladly put him as my wide receiver 2. Especially if I'm going to go running back heavy for the first 3 rounds, take a wide receiver either in the 3rd or 4th round. I'm going to come back and take him in the 5th round and be fine.
I'll tell you what, if there are people who don't really pay attention too much to fantasy football, Chris Godwin's name alone doesn't carry a ton of value.
No.
Right now it doesn't. So I think you might be able to sneak him in even later potentially.
I've done 3 mocks in the last 24 hours, and he has gone middle to end of 6th, as early and as late as the 7th round. And I'm like, thank you. I will gladly take it.
You can line him up as your wide receiver 1 almost every week.
Right.
So, I mean, for me, he's going to be a steal.
Right.
That's why I like him personally.
And in our personal league, outside of like us 3, there may be one other person that even knows who Chris Godwin is.
Still, that's enough. Once it's more than one, it's too
over.
many people that
right.
know.
So, anyways, but yeah, so I'm all in on Chris Godwin. I'm all in on David Montgomery. You're all in on Chris Carson, and who is the final guy that you're all in on?
So there's a late guy that I really love here, and I've kind of got him in almost every mock draft that I've been doing. It's Curtis Samuel out of the Panthers. And really the reason for me is you're getting a potential wide receiver 1 on that team in the 11th round. Now, do I truly think he's going to be the wide receiver 1? No, I think DJ Moore is going to take that. But I love the way they try to get him the ball. He's explosive and in the open field, just like a Tyreek Hill-esque kind of player.
Right.
They just got to get him the ball. And I like to call him right now the Swiss Army knife because he's going to do a little bit in the running game. He's going to do a little bit in the passing game.
Norv Turner has praised him significantly and said, we are going to find a way to get the ball to him as much as we can.
Well, he started off so slow last year.
Well, he was also hurt, too.
Right. Well, he only played in 13 games. But the last 10 games is where all his stats came from. And basically in 10 games, he scored 7 touchdowns. He was second on the team.
Right. And, and Cam Newton likes to find him often as much as he can. And if Cam Newton's shoulder is good to go, I don't know if you've seen some of the highlights. Cam Newton's just letting it rip, and he's just throwing it down the sideline, go routes. Here you go.
And with Funches out now, so his target share is going to be spread out.
Between who is it? Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, and then I think there's a third wide receiver that they've kind of thought about bringing.
Right.
So and they got 2 tight ends. We don't know what they're going to do with those 2 guys, Olsen and Ian Thomas. So
well, just remember, he only had 57 touches last year, and he got 7 touchdowns out of it. If he increases those touches a little bit more, there could be a double-digit touchdown year, which if you're getting that in the 11th round.
Right. I just think that the biggest thing to help him is Christian McCaffrey being the running back and Cam Newton being his quarterback, because they both have the run threat. And let's just be honest, that read option draws enough people in. All it takes is half a step in towards the quarterback for a DB to be passed by Curtis Samuel, because he's got speed. So
now I'm telling you, don't pay up for Curtis Samuel.
Oh, no.
I'm not saying that. I like him because he's a double-digit guy, meaning if he totally is a bust, I'm not really losing a ton of draft capital here.
What's the earliest you're drafting him round-wise? Like, if you've got him, like, let's just say that your league mate, we'll just say it's myself or Blackburn, that we're sitting there getting ready to hit the 9th going into the 10th round. That somebody's going to take him before you get to your pick in the 11th round. Are you willing to take him at the end of the 9th, towards the end of the 9th, or has to be a 10th round guy? Has to be a 10th round guy, or does he have to be an 11th round guy?
The problem with that, my head went this way, is I already know I need a quarterback.
Right.
I probably don't have one yet.
Probably not.
I'm probably going to have to lean to I'm going to have to pass on him at least in the 9th, maybe see him in the 10th. Now, let's say I decide to take a flyer on an early quarterback. Then, I'm willing to take a 9th round flyer on.
Okay. I was just curious.
It's got to be the end of the 9th, though, for me.
Right. I was going to say, for me, 9th round is comfortable for me, to middle to end of the 9th round for Curtis Samuel, because I think, and he's one of those guys that you might want to, Cam Newton's a late quarterback. Pair him with him. Because I'm just saying, Cam Newton, if healthy, is a top 5 quarterback. If he is healthy, he's good to go.
Right.
I mean, and if his shoulder holds up, I mean, you got a guy who's going to rip it and let it go. I mean, he's going to hand the ball off to McCaffrey, dump it down to McCaffrey, run a little bit, throw those Hail Mary throws, those questionable, you're like, oh my gosh, throws. But 7 touchdowns, I mean, he shows that he's going to be the guy. Now, I'm not saying DJ Moore, don't forget about DJ Moore. DJ Moore is going to be more of a possession receiver.
He'll be your volume guy. He'll
Right.
be more consistent each week.
He's going to be the guy you probably want in PPR, where Curtis Samuel, I think, is going to be the guy you're going to want in more standard league
right.
format. Not that, like, if I'm looking at which Carolina Panthers wide receiver I'm drafting, it's going to totally depend on the format that I'm playing in, whether it's non-PPR or PPR. I just think Curtis Samuel is all touchdowns and yards. Where
boom or bust.
Right. Exactly. So, and then you've got DJ Moore is going to be receptions and yards and maybe some touchdowns.
Right.
So, I don't know. I'm all in on Curtis Samuel, though, especially if I can get him somewhere in that double-digit round. That's perfect. Because by that time, you've got, probably every one of your starting lineup guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you're sitting there at 2-3 wide receivers, 2 or 3 running backs, maybe a tight end, maybe a quarterback.
Right. And I'd say you could probably snag MVS in this round.
Yes.
But he's slowly climbing now, so you're going to have to probably overpay for him too.
Unfortunately, his ADP is steadily climbed. I mean, when we had him on the show last year, we could kind of tell that that's what we thought was going to happen last year, but it just didn't translate. But I think a lot of it goes to Aaron Rodgers not being healthy, as well as Mike McCarthy playing JV football in the NFL. So it is what it is. But I think that MVS is going to be a viable option this year, as well as Geronimo Allison, I think, is going to be a good one as well. And I think Geronimo Allison is going to probably be the one that I end up drafting because his ADP is going to be steadily staying in that back end of the draft where MVS is going to slowly start climbing into single-digit ADPs that you're just like, okay, well, it's too much.
Well, Camp Talk's going his way, so
It
normally ADP goes with Camp Talk. So.
Right. So
Real quick, I'm going to try to sell you on Chris Carson one more time.
No.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So, if you're the Melvin Gordon draftee,
Yeah.
now you know he's going to miss at least 1 week.
All right.
Chris Carson gets to open up at home against the Bengals. Listen, they weren't the greatest run defense last year. I know
No.
you can't totally rely
I
on
know.
last year's stats. but
Is it
think
at
about it.
home?
It's at home, too.
Oh.
That's why I like him, because if you're one of those guys that are going to take a risky top-end guy,
The
Chris
12th
Carson,
man helps.
right away, right
Chris
out of
Carson.
the gate. So then even if Chris Carson does slowly
Fizzle
go the way
out.
you think he's going to go, you're getting at least one good week out of him right
Yeah.
out of the gate.
See, to me, I don't mind drafting Chris Carson as my RB3. That's
Okay.
that's where I guess in my mind where I put him at. He cannot be my RB1 for sure, obviously. RB2, it'd be really pushing it. But RB3, comfortable drafting him as my third running back. So if I draft a running back first round, second round, and then he's sitting there in the 5th round, fine. I will gladly take him.
He's right now sitting in the middle of the 5th.
Right. So
Yeah.
I will gladly take him in the 5th round as my third running back and be fine. I don't think I could take him as my second running back and feel good.
Right. Well, and especially if he caught the ball more, I'd definitely feel more safe. But yeah, I agree with you.
So, well, if he caught the ball more, I think his ADP would be in that 3rd to 4th round ADP.
Absolutely.
So I know there's a lot of people out there, and this is the funny thing is when you listen to these as they call them, fantasy truthers, you've got guys like who are all about Philip Lindsay. Then you have guys who are not about Philip Lindsay, and you end up liking
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones. Then you've got guys who are all in on Tariq Cohen and anti-David Montgomery, or vice versa. I mean,
I'm all David Montgomery.
Right. I'm just saying in
Yeah.
concept of like there are truthers out there. So like there are going to be Chris Carson truthers. There's going to be a Rashad Penny truther. I guarantee in your league of 10 to 12 people, there is one guy who absolutely cannot stand Chris Carson, will not draft him, but will gladly draft Rashad Penny. Vice versa. Somebody's going to absolutely love Chris Carson, but cannot stand to draft Rashad Penny. There is one person in every league that is a truther for a certain player, and they will be willing to pay up. So I don't mind Chris Carson at his ADP, and that's not what I was saying, like I can't draft him. I just meant like if I have the opportunity and you tell me at the end of the year these guys are going to be separated by 30 points, I'm going to take the guy that's going in the 7th, 8th round.
I get your
That's
point.
the only difference. But I mean, to me, it's to each his own. And I know that Chris Carson was a beast at times last year and was carrying that run game on his back literally. So I don't mind him, but let's see. I'm trying to think if we have anything else before we go.
Blackburn, you got anything? No.
Awfully quiet today. Like we said, we do have the our listener league draft is kicking off here in a couple hours. The last member that we didn't mention last week, but we did actually end up joining in, is Carlos Henderson. Or no, I want to say Carlos Henderson because I saw the Denver Broncos player. Carlos Hernandez. My apologies. Good gosh, it's not you, it's me. You know what?
Do it.
Where's it at? It's your
Do
ball.
it. Your ball.
Did I take it off? Oh my gosh, I did.
It's your ball. I'll just do it myself.
I failed today, folks. Nope, I did not.
No, it's got to be your bull.
So, congratulations to Carlos for being the last guy in. Apologies for the butchering of the name.
We're gonna edit this whole last
This
part
last
out.
little bit out. So, but he actually, being the last guy in, he got the number 2 draft pick. Congratulations! Late to the party, gets a second ticket to
I think
the
we
deli
should
counter.
We should put our name in last.
I know.
Maybe we would have got number
Maybe
2.
so.
Actually, we got 3. We're good.
I'll take it. All right. So thanks, guys, for joining us on today's show. Whether you're new to the show or if you're a returning viewer or listener, we appreciate you tuning in today. You can, like we said, find us on any of the podcast platforms. You can find us on YouTube or on DATV for the Dayton local people at 10:30 p.m. Fridays and then 4 p.m. on Sundays. So for us, we're quickly ramping up for fantasy football season. The drafts are now here. Thursday Night Football, the Hall of Fame game is tonight. It's a good time to start dabbling in. If you're not a year-round fantasy football person,
Yes.
this is the time that you start digging your feet into the sand and getting grounded, ready to go for the season, because this is the time to really start getting into looking at stats, looking at players, evaluating stuff, because now's the time you're at camp. You're in preseason now. It's time to go. Even if you're not a year-round guy, this is the time to jump in. So, and then for us on our end, you can go to the site, thehateful8ff.com. You can get the articles. There's apparel on there as well if you're wanting to represent the show and support us at your family get-togethers or your drafts that are coming up. We do have a fantasy football draft shirt that we're going to put out probably in the next week or so that way if you guys want to show up to your fantasy drafts and mic drop it.
Show up in style.
Right. Not like Dumb and Dumber with the tuxedos of the teal and the orange. I mean, we could
Listen, to each their own on style, man.
Right. So, but as we said, if you're not a year-round guy and you're not in depth into this analytical stuff and fantasy football knowledge stuff, and you just want somebody to basically feed you, hey, this is who we think's good, this is who we think's bad, and this is where we've got them projected, you can go to theaveragejonation.com. And that's why we call it the Average Donation. It's for the average Joe of fantasy football. It's not these guys who are like us who go dabble in and like try to find that one diamond in the rough player. This does it for you. You literally log in, you pay your $10, which that's what the fee is. You log in, you hit print on the export for the cheat sheets, or if you just pull up on your computer or laptop or even on your handheld device, mobile device, tablet, whatever, you can literally pull it up and you can go player by scoring. We have it in full, half, and non-PPR, plus the 4 points or 6 points passing touchdowns for quarterbacks, which you don't get in a lot of places. So like
we've been saying all show, we update it daily now. It's going to be updated way more frequently than it has been. And there's bus guys in there. There's my guy candidates, all kinds of stuff's in there.
So it's not just the projections. There's also articles that you can get into and kind of see, as you're pointing out. It's not just the projections. There's articles and there's reasons why we believe this guy is going to be good or why we believe this guy is going to be bad or we shouldn't pay up for this ADP at this ADP or you should pay up at this ADP, things like that. So
and it's more than just our 3 opinions on this too.
Right.
I mean, the writers that do a great job and their analytics that they use, their opinions are all mixed in, so it's a nice combination of stuff.
Right, and then as well, I mean, with the data that we get pumped into the projections and stuff like that from Matt Spencer over at Sports Sabermetrics.
He's crazy, man.
Dude is.
I don't know how he does it.
I don't know how he does it. I don't know when he sleeps, honestly. So shout out to him and shout out to the writers that put in to all the time and the effort into this. But like we said, averagejonation.com, $10, sign up and be ready to go for your draft. Walk in day one of the draft and be ready to walk out feeling like you've already won a championship. Now, as we always say, you do not win your fantasy football leagues at the draft,
Correct.
but you can lose it because you could come out with a bad draft and set yourself back a lot of steps behind your league mates, and then you have to play the uphill battle of waiver wires and trades the rest of the season. That's not what we want you to do. We want you to walk out of the draft locked, loaded, ready to go, and you're in the position of feeling like, hey, I've got the upper hand with my league mates because I can draft. I drafted really well. I can make some trades. I might be a little bit weak here. I'll pull this guy, pull the trigger on this guy, and trade him to this player, this team, things like that. So
You know how you know you had a good draft? When Yahoo says you got a D.
Right.
That means you did really well.
I always laugh when I see those.
I do too. I
when
never draft more above a C+.
Right.
But yet I'm always fine every year.
Right. So, anyways, and then you can follow the podcast handles for us on Twitter. It's at jpickle th8ff. It is at ftrim th8ff. And then Blackburn is not here today. It is at jblackburn th8ff. You can follow the handle for the podcast itself at the Hateful 8ff. So, anything else?
That's it.
All right. Well, good luck to all of our listener league mates. You're going to need it because in the next week or two, you're going to feel defeated.
Listen, I'm
already.
getting the size for that ring on this finger, so we're good to go.
So we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys next week.